Hello and welcome back to the Inside Britball podcast. Part of our Champions series, we are bringing you special bonus episodes where we have caught up with all the national champions from this summer. This time up is the London Blitz under-19s team. We caught up with Coach Firoz, who is the OC there, and Coach Simon, who's the special teams coordinator and wide receivers coach as well. They got back to normal winning routine this summer, picking up their 10th national championship in 15 years, a programme which has been well documented under the tenure of Coach Jason Henry. And it's an incredible conversation, great insight into their season as well as their programme. Me and Isaac caught up with them this time, and I know you're going to enjoy this one. If you haven't already, go back and listen to our other episodes with Bristol Aztecs and the Solent Thrashers women, and we'll bring you more, that's for certain. Thank you very much and enjoy this conversation. Welcome to the Inside Britball podcast. My name is Andy Taylor. I'm joined by Isaac, as I usually am when it comes to contact football, but we've got two very special guests today. As part of our Champion series, it's a huge congratulations, but a welcome also to Coach Firoz and Coach Simon of the London Blitz under-19s, national champions again, dare I say. Congratulations, guys, on such an incredible season. Have you had time to kind of reflect back on it in recent weeks, because we're recording mid-October now, so it's been a little while, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been it was nice reflecting on a season. It was quite a long season actually. Obviously, February through to September's quite a long time. But a combination of a lot of hard work that started kind of in the off season, and nice to go away all the way through the playoffs and get some pretty big scouts. We were really lucky, played some great teams and we're in some great matches. And obviously, bringing home another title was nice to have.
And Simon, yourself, yeah.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. We always want to try and make sure as a coaching staff and with the players as well that we do take the time to make sure that we do look back on what we've done, because it is an achievement. Like, yes, we do historically do quite well, but each individual season is its own achievement, whether we win or not. Obviously, it's nice when we do, but it's important to make sure that we do kind of look at that, and it helps see where we've come from to where we've gotten to, and then kind of helps us in the process for the following seasons.
That's awesome, isn't it? And like, if you get a sort of like a general look back on the season, did you expect, so maybe Coach Firoz, from your point of view, being having such a high-flying offense this year, and being the OC, you can take a bit of credit for that, obviously. Did you expect it to go that way? Was the start of the season your goals to be that prolific? Because if we just mention the stats in particular, during the regular season, you scored an average of 45 points a game. In the postseason, against some of those big scalps that you've already mentioned, you averaged 47 points across those 3 games as well. It couldn't have gone any better, but I'm sure, what was your thoughts? What's your approach going into the season at the beginning of it all?
Yeah, I mean, we build our entire offense around our run game, because that just allows us to unlock that passing. And you know what? This year we were so blessed from an offensive line perspective. We had a really, really great centre, really consistent, which is so important in under-19s football. Having a great centre, someone that you can rely on to really command that line. And then really lucky to have some great weaponry in the backfield. You know, we had Owain coming back after a great season last year where we didn't quite make the playoffs, but his kind of trajectory into the season just continued to get better and better. But we definitely had a 2-pronged attack with him and Davide in the backfield. I had lots of DCs come up to me after games and go, where are you getting these guys from? Because once the first running back goes down, the second comes in. So it makes life very easy as an offensive coordinator when you've got weapons like that. We managed to build a really successful run game, and that just opened up the passing lanes for us all the way through the season. Did I think that we were going to average 45 points, even as an eternal optimist as I am? Probably not. So, really, really happy with our output.
And Coach Simon, from your point of view, not only is it very helpful to have such weapons on the offense as well, and so on, but when it comes to having such a such a team of coaches around you. I had a little look at, the list of coaches that you've got on that team, not just you two, but also, on defense, offensive line. Obviously, Coach Henry's not too bad either, is he? That's got to help when it comes to trying to, reset, as you like, after a disappointing season last year, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think with our coaching staff, we're lucky in two regards. In terms of there is a lot of us. Like there's not a kind of easier way to put that. We're not necessarily all there. We probably see I think the only time we're ever all together is at the final, if we get that far. But it's just different people's work schedules. Some of us live further away. But again, it's just making sure that we communicate as a staff to know what we're doing with each of the positionals. And then kind of as where we are with install as well. It's also quite a relatively experienced staff, obviously towards the coordinator end of things, but even with some of our positional coaches, they're pretty experienced as well. But we do try to make sure that we've got younger coaches coming through or less experienced coaches, whether that's players who've come through our system and maybe went away to university and then have come back and aren't playing anymore and want to give back. And whether that can be in our contact program or our flag one. So it's almost making sure we're developing them as players, but also those coaches that come back, how we then help develop those. And most of the coaches coach on both sides of the ball as well, which kind of helps from that perspective as well.
Do you kind of think that your success has kind of stemmed from that, the ability to be able to recruit high class players, but also to recruit high class coaches as well? Is that why the program's been so good for so long?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, it kind of stems from Coach Henry and Coach Adrian. You've got two coaches there between them. I think I've got 30 plus years experience. So, we really put a lot of emphasis on developing the coaches as much as the players. Because that's really important as well, because we definitely want to be seen as a great coaching culture to be able to then feed the rest of the programs that are around there, like the regional programs and into GB, etc. So we've got a great track record of moving coaches into other teams, whether that's into the B team or A team for the London Blitz, or moving around into GB programs and regional and all that type of stuff. And the coaches really take it seriously in terms of the amount of preparation. And we've never underestimated the amount of preparation that goes into kind of winning games, because whilst some of our scores absolutely do flatter us sometimes, there's a lot of work that goes into that kind of pre-game, and it's the blessing of having that many coaches and great leadership with Coach Henry and Coach Adrian.
And before we go into the rest of the season, and it's pretty much all flowers from there, isn't it? We'll obviously dive into the detail as we go along. But Simon, how disappointed was the programme after last year? Because probably surprised everyone from the outside as to you guys not making another national championship, because that was something that you were doing on a year by year basis. Was there a reset mentality? Take us through that from last year into this year, where you started the season, which, as we all know, ended all right in the end.
I think you'll probably hear a few of kind of Coach Henry's maxims throughout the middle of this, but every year the players are told at the start of the season, we can take you as far as you guys want to go in terms of how far what you want to put into it. And obviously this year and most previous years, it's kind of come together that way. I think our main issue last year was more, we just didn't have people available all at the same time. And that's the nature of under-19s football. It's over the summer. If you've got more university students, they because they're term ends and they go home. So we just struggled in a couple of key games with that. So again, we knew we had a decent crop, or a good crop of under-16 players coming up this year, and that helps when we've got people who've come all the way through the program. One, they've played football a bit longer. Two, we know they're probably around more for the summer. And I think that gave us a really good basis this year, along with some of the other players that had came across that maybe had done their first year at university. So, but every year it's a reset. And again, it's because of the age group of the players, it's always that, my parents are taking me away for 4 weeks, like in the middle of the season. And you're like, all right, perfect. Right. So we're going to have to make sure we plan ahead for that and make sure we've got people to kind of fill those gaps. And it's always that developmental thing, because again, another thing that gets said every year, just because someone starts in the first game doesn't mean they'll be starting by the end of the season. Like, there is that competition, and some people take it really well, and some people push themselves into that starting place. But it's very much you've got to earn it culture to get there, and it seems to work.
Yeah, it's very fair, and I suppose 10 in 15, if my maths is correctly, is showing that something's going right there, isn't it? And I remember when I was interviewing Coach Henry at beginning of the last season, he was talking about how it's always the why, and what is your why, and so on, and it's just such an interesting sort of approach to things. And I'm sure, Isaac, you've kind of seen different approaches, haven't you, across multiple different academies, and it's always interesting to see how it's still although the objective may be to win a national championship, it's not necessarily always the main objective. It's normally the outcome. The way I hear it from Coach Henry, that it's just a nice little byproduct of what you're setting up there. I hope I'm not doing it a disservice by describing it that way, for sure.
No, not at all. I think the ethos of the program is we're trying to prepare. We have had females come through the program, but we're trying to prepare these young men for life, and in terms of discipline, of being able to turn up on time, communicate, work as a collective, not swearing. We have that rule, which is really, really important, because actually, some of these are the formative years for a lot of these guys, and even just spending 1 year with that program, some of the stuff they learn. Well, hopefully, that what we're trying to instill in them is set them up for life. The winning obviously is fun. I'm not going to sit here and pretend winning isn't fun, but you certainly lose a lot. You certainly learn a lot when you lose as well, which obviously we did last year.
When we're looking through the season, then in particular, the regular season went quite smoothly, didn't it? From the outside looking in, what do we need to know that maybe was down to that success, or was it as smoothly as it looked? Because it looked like it was going well on the scoreboard, but obviously you guys get to see the ins and outs and the day to day that not necessarily we do. Was it as all plain sailing as it looked?
I've got a lot of grey hairs since I started being OC for the Blitz, so it wasn't as plain sailing as, we're notoriously slow starters, so that's always a challenge. But we have something called a 3-drive mentality. So let's get through the first 3 drives of any game on offense and defense with our starters, and then see where we end up, because you start to get a real measure of the other team. Because teams tend to come flying out the blocks in those first 3 drives and can kind of whittle away a little bit. So we just try, and it's hard, they're children. So, maintaining patience through a game is difficult. We've got lots of players who people want to get onto the field, but it's just that 3-drive mentality and moving into the season. We also try and keep the playbook as simple as possible, because we realistically, the first half of the season, we only have the guys for once a week. So as much as I'd love to install a 45, 300, 600 page playbook, it's just not feasible. So it's, working with the tools that you've got and ensuring that we focus as much as we can on the fundamentals. And, that's kind of where the success in the program comes. It's in those fundamentals in those weeks in February when it's really cold and rainy outside, that, you're doing the back pedal drills and you're doing the 1 steps and the 3 steps and all that stuff that really isn't that sexy when you get to July, but it's the stuff that makes champions.
One thing we saw right at the start of the season was just the difference in the first 2 games. So the first game was against the South London Renegades, 60-6 victory for yourselves, and then away to the London Warriors, 46-30. What's it like when you've got to kind of set up and play 2 different teams almost, in different styles, really? Because in one you've shown that you can blow people out of the water, and in the other one it looks like quite a tough game at the same time.
I think, as you said, it's different styles. We always know particularly with the inter-London games, that they're always going to be difficult. A lot of the players from the teams, they train together in other aspects of things. They may be at university together. There's other kind of programs around that some of them that are at. So they're all quite friendly with each other. But it means they all know each other, and it means they really want to compete and beat each other when it comes into the game. And that is good. Like, it is a positive, but it does sometimes mean we've just got to as coaches, we've got to kind of make sure people stay level on that and don't get too caught up in their individual battle when it's the wider aspect of things. Obviously, a lot of those teams we play year on year, and we try, and obviously teams will change, whether it's personnel, whether it's scheme, but we do try and keep an eye out in terms of, right, what have we seen in the past? What do their coaches how do they like to react to stuff? And that's, as we kind of bring it back to that, having that larger coaching staff, being able to pull on that and look at the various options for that and see where we get to. I think that's how we were able to kind of deal with it, with those aspects.
And then
I think particularly after,
No, go on.
Yeah, I think particularly after the second game, we really self-reflected, and because from an offensive perspective, we didn't execute as well as we wanted to. Whilst we scored 46 points, it was a really, really messy game for us, particularly from an offensive line perspective in terms of identifying blocking schemes, etc., and trying to get the running backs the right avenues. Because I mean, you'll probably get bored of me saying this, but the whole premise of the offense is building that run game. Because as soon as you get the linebackers starting to come down on that stuff, it really does open up some pretty big passing lanes. Where obviously the benefit of playing 9v9 is that you've got a lot of space on the field, so you can then start to exploit that. And then if you've got a really great QB, which we did in Corey Badry, it's then easy to really stretch teams deep. But we didn't execute as well in the second game as we'd want to. The rivalry always plays a big part. The rivalry is slightly bigger with the Warriors than it is with South London. But yeah, there's always some pretty big pre-match nerves for the players before the Warriors showdown.
And then we'll look at the end of the season as well. You had a 6-week break from your last regular season game to the playoff game. Was that a well-needed rest, or was that kind of like a hindrance to coaches? Like, you just wanted to play as much as you can and try and ride the momentum?
I'll be honest, it was a little longer than I would have preferred. So the way we shape our season, obviously we go from one session a week all the way until the clocks go forward, then we go to 2 sessions a week. And as we start to really heat up towards the end, we'll do some positional sessions. We obviously have 2 video calls a week, etc. So it really does start to ramp up. But trying to keep the kids engaged when you've got a big 6-week gap is hard. And especially going into the summer, as Coach Simon's already mentioned, you've got people coming in and out. So would have preferred that gap to be a little bit shorter, but it just gave us some time to really hone in on a few things. It gives us an opportunity to be able to install some of the more complicated stuff that we've got in the offense. And yeah, we reap the rewards of that later into the season.
So ask you, Coach Simon, obviously we don't get to see the London Blitz under 19s as much as we would like, less streaming involved in that sort of age group, etc. So if someone is just looking at the stats, they would think, this is a high-powered offense, very explosive, scores lots and lots of points. Coach has just mentioned there that you've got that three drive mentality at the start of the game. So is it an explosive offense? Is it a methodical offense that takes the field and obviously it helps having the GB quality guys on your offense, but how would you describe the offense for someone who doesn't get to see it as often as they would like?
I think a bit of a cop out, but it can be both, and I think that's the advantage we've had this year. It all does all start with that offensive line, and we probably had our strongest line that we've had in terms of the starters and our depth in quite a while. So being able to open up those running lanes, and as Firoz mentioned before, it's 9 on 9. If you get to the second level, you make one guy miss, and you've got a good athlete, you're gone. So that it can be, we're kind of churning yards, then suddenly there's one open lane and someone goes for 60 or 70. And again, because we've been fortunate with having Corey at quarterback this year, and we've actually had a pretty strong core of receivers as well. In terms of a range of experience, we've had guys like Aaron, who's been in the program for a few years. We've had people like Armani, who was new to the game this year, as a 16, 17-year-old coming in and making plays. So having that ability, because it's they've got such a good run game, so surely you stack the box. Right, okay, but then you've got to run with our guys on the outside as well, and we've got a quarterback that can put it down the field, which is not to say he can't hit the accurate throws underneath as well. But it's just if you in 9 on 9, if you can get your athletes in space and make it 1-on-1, it's hard for any defender. to consistently make those tackles and keep up with them. So, yeah, we were fortunate this year in terms of we could be kind of a bit more multifaceted than we've previously been.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add there is that the whole premise of the offense is to get 4 yards on each down. You know, we like to go for fourth downs a lot, like my beloved Eagles. Drop that in there, but yeah, you know, so actually we can kind of do both well in terms of that explosive offensive plays. You know, try and get people into space, but we do death by 1,000 cuts really well as well. You know, so we can grind and churn. You know, particularly when we play Rushmore, it's a very, very physical team up front. Yeah, so you know you're going to have to go toe to toe with them, and it's not going to be breakout runs every time. So it is, you know, really, really important that the kids know that you know what the premise of the offense is to get those 4 yards, and then we just keep moving the sticks, and that can be quite demoralising for a defence. You know, conceding 1 first down over and over again keeps your defence off the field as well. So yeah.
I think that's a really important point in terms of like getting people prepared that, all right, we're not necessarily going to score on the first play every time, and understand that sometimes it's going to take more of a drive, or actually they may even get us in the backfield once or twice in a drive, but actually as long as we bounce back, then we're fine, so that the players don't get kind of concerned if we don't score quickly. It's actually, well, we're comfortable, we're in this drive, and as long as we're moving the ball, then everything's fine.
As then you touched on the Rushmore semi-final. You know, going to the home of the national champions, were you just thinking that we're just going to play our style and we're just confident in the way that we play, and it's just going to work? Eventually, everything will just work out the way you want it to.
I have an incredible amount of faith in our coaching staff, and the preparation we did for the Rushmore game was extensive. You know, so you've got to respect the champions, and you're going to go into their house as well. So you've got 2 real big scalps there in terms of kind of the type of team you're facing. Obviously, well coached, well drilled team, very, very physical. So you know, we had the whole coaching staff kind of really muck in terms of preparing us for that, understanding schemes, understanding the changes that they make. But we're just supremely confident that, you know, we execute in what is a very simple game plan, and we will get what we need from the game. You know, and it was a close game for a long part of that. You know, that whilst the scoreline did get quite big in the end, it was pretty even for about 3 quarters. So
I suppose I've got 2 offensive. I should mention special teams for you, Simon, of course, but we've got we probably remiss without talking about that defense that you've had this year as well, because, you know, using some outside looking in stats, you know, they in the regular season conceded less than 2 touchdowns a game. In the postseason, the same. Incredible team, that defensive unit, to be able to shut out a lot of their opponents. But Coach Simon, they're probably really good to train against, I can imagine, as well. But I suppose I should ask you offensive guys to tell us about your defense that took you through the season as well.
Yeah, I can. I think our defense was on a real journey through the year. You know, we had a lot of young guys come into that unit. So it was really nice to see their growth, certainly as sitting on the other side of it, you know, to see kind of players growing into their positions and understanding the game better. I think kind of going back to what we talked about in fundamentals, all of our players train both sides of the ball. And that's so key for us, because you're then able to understand what are the keys and the cues from an offensive player, you know. So instilling that scheme as we went through, you started to really see it come home towards the end of the season, when we were keeping the games, or certainly not letting teams come and score against us, you know. So we saw great growth in our secondary, which had a really challenging start to the season. And we all know, you know, again, going back to that whole space mantra in this game, if you've got a weak secondary, it can really, really expose you to those long balls. So you know, hats off to the secondary and kind of how they improved as the year went. We started to get more pressure on the QB as well. So
awesome. And when you start looking then towards the final that we had at Brick Ball weekend, of course, which ended up looking like a one-sided affair, but it turned out that, as you said, Coach, that started off a little bit slow in comparison to those middle 2 quarters, right? So I think I've got end of quarter 1, you were down to Edinburgh Napier, but then you came back in quarter 2 and quarter 3. What was did you change any of your approach going into that final, or was it just going to be the same thing, knowing full well that you're going to have as big a challenge as you had in the semi-final as well against the Edinburgh Knights, who were on fire all season as well?
No, I think it's, again, you talked about at the start with the two London teams, the difference of challenges in terms of like when we look at our running game, where Rushmore were very much they crowded the line a lot. It was a lot of heavier fronts and bigger fronts, whereas Napier did the exact opposite. They had two down linemen for a lot of the game, which we were probably not spoiling too much, but like we were a bit surprised that they stuck with that. But again, it just gave us a different look, because we've had teams come out in two fronts against us before, and they haven't necessarily stuck in them for very long. But they had good tacklers and good athletes at linebacker, which meant they could flow over the top, and that was where they kind of slowed us a little bit. But it comes back down to that 3-drive mentality of, and that it kind of counts across offense, defense, and special teams. And just don't get too high too quickly, don't get too low too quickly, and kind of then adjust, because obviously the players get used to going up against who they're going up against. All right, this didn't work, but that does keep the adjustments going from that perspective. Make sure they're talking with the coaches, make sure there's a coaching staff are talking on the sideline as well, and kind of just identifying where we think we can get some good gains out of.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd add is finals were really hard. It's hard to get the kids out of that kind of that stratosphere, because I mean, let's be honest, not very many people get to national finals, and for a lot of those kids it'll be the one and only time that they ever make it there. So our job actually as a coaching staff is, let's not change the game plan too much from what we've been successful in the season, because I think some coaches are guilty of that, going into a final of over scheming and then actually just keeping them calm for the game. Because it is nerve-wracking. You play in front of a crowd. You've got national anthems, you've got cameras, and you've got family there, and all that type of stuff. So, it's just trying to keep them pretty chilled before a big game. And the notoriously slow starting did come back in the final. But, we managed to warm up as we went through.
Yeah, 54-19 in the end is not too bad to bring that 10th one home in 15 years, which is just an incredible feat, isn't it? And when it came, it's funny because talking to the teams that we have spoken to, the national champions that we have, they've all talked about this mentality in the final being their biggest hurdle, because they're all there on merit, aren't they? They've all done it to get there, and each and every one of them had their mentality struggles. As so the Thrashers women talked about how they weren't enjoying themselves, and they went and enjoyed themselves, and all of a sudden they came back in it in the second half, and so on. Give us a bit of insight. How do you manage that? Because these are, as you've mentioned already, 16, 17, 18-year-old lads and some girls, of course, who would have been on fire for the lead up to that, I'm sure, and on the day. But what's your approach?
Similar to what I said, it's just we try and keep that the preamble to the game as similar to a regular season game as possible, right? Okay. Or as much as BAFRA allows us to, in the sense that you don't want the kids to feel like it's a different game, because then they automatically get into this is different, and it's just making sure that the way we do things at Finsbury Park before, the training sessions and the run up, and not any different. The walkthroughs, all that stuff is, we try and keep it as balanced as possible to say this is just another game, whilst it is a final, and we're going to be playing a really competitive opponent in Edinburgh who did really well in their division. The opponent, it's the same game, same rules, same field. Let's rely on what's given us the success throughout the year. And then there's a trophy at the end. Should you execute and do what you've done so well throughout the year?
I think it's that what you mentioned with the Solent women. Like, one of the things we will tell them is training is the hard part. Games are the fun bit. Like you've kind of put the work in to get to the games. So go out and enjoy yourself with it. And I think that helps, because that's it. They know they're there to enjoy it. Granted, they've got to make sure they stay disciplined, but other than that, like, go out and enjoy yourselves. And if you're enjoying yourself, it tends to go better.
And how did it feel to get back to winning ways at the end of it all? Because presumably you guys were involved in the program prior to last season as well. Is that right? So did it feel like back to normal, or did it feel a little bit extra sweeter this year? Maybe Coach Simon, if you want to take that first, was it just that little bit sweeter to get back to it this year?
Yeah, I mean, I've been involved with the program for about seven seasons now. I think it is in total. So I've won a few, but I think every year is different. Like there was, that wasn't supposed to sound like it sounded, but like it's every year you kind of take on its merit. Like there was still positive things that we took away from last season as well. But it is nice to kind of see the culmination of it. Like I played for about 15 years, and I tell the kids every year, like I played in one national final. Like granted, as the under-19s, like we've got a decent history of making a lot of finals, but this isn't the norm. So it's about making sure they enjoy the experience, which obviously you do more if you win as well. But it's basically understanding that you shouldn't take this for granted just because generally the team is successful. You've still got to work at it to get there. And yeah, last year it came together really well. It had its challenges, but it'll be the same next year. It'll be just slightly different challenges.
I'm not sure I'd describe it as sweeter because you've got a new crop. You more or less have a new crop of kids every year. So you kind of, we tend to keep maybe 40% of the guys. Some people will drop out for various reasons and that. So it always feels different. It's nice to be back at the top because it's all the hard work that goes into the season is that's your reward at the end, and also my favorite thing about the finals is just seeing the sheer happiness and joy on some of the kids' faces, because it will be for a very, very long time one of the best moments they ever have in their life, and being just being able to coach that and see that level of joy and enjoyment and see kids that and Coach Simon talked about it earlier. You've got the team that started our first game didn't start the final, so you get to see some of these kids go through such a great growth, not just personally but actually physically and in the game. And that's the reason I coach. There's the reason I coach U19s is because I still believe it's the most rewarding. The youth game I think is the most rewarding facet of this of what we do in British American football. And that's probably the sweet bit.
I think just adding on to that, it's like if I go to because I'm involved with the senior setup now as well, but when I'm at different teams with that, or if I'm at Bucks games or at the Bucks finals, and I will see guys that we've coached who've obviously went off to university and whatever else, and I just suddenly get a tap on the shoulder and they start just chatting to me like these are guys I haven't seen in 2 or 3 years, but then they start reminiscing, and there's guys who've been in the program even longer ago than that. And it's really cool just being able that they can remember so fondly and so vividly those kind of memories of those Wednesday training sessions, those winning those games, whether it was a year that they won their year or not. That is the rewarding bit, and just to see where they kind of go off to, at whichever level they end up going off to, is really rewarding.
Yeah, I always talk about my favorite moments when coaching youth is that those light bulb moments that some of them get, when you can just see it, right, that's what I need to do, in the click that they have. It's so rewarding, isn't it? And have you got a number of guys going on into Bucks and maybe NFL academies or maybe abroad following this year, you expecting? Yeah,
we've got quite a few guys that have gone back to uni across various programs: Portsmouth, Nottingham, Hearts, Brunel, Kings. So we're quite lucky that we've got good feeders, and you know what, those guys are. They're our advert for being able to bring uni guys back into our setup as well, because I think we kind of run with a kind of a core group of players through the season, and it's always nice to be able to sprinkle in some experience kind of late on. As you start to get down the stretch. So we've had a few guys successful at the NFL Academy, not as many of late, but we always encourage the kids to try and play as many forms of football. The thing I always get frustrated about is I didn't have those opportunities as a child growing up. I had to set up my own youth team because there wasn't one. So, and now these guys, they could play football 4 or 5 times a week if they really wanted. So that's beauty. It's the beauty of the growth of the game, isn't it?
The one kind of boasting that I will throw out there is like we've got 2 guys that in 10 days are going to play each other in an NCAA Division 1 game. We've got James Fowler playing for UNLV and Darren Argues at University of New Mexico. So they're going to be playing in Allegiant Stadium in 10 days' time against each other, O-line versus D-line. Like, that's really cool. Like, for us, for British football in general. And obviously we've had Bam Olaseni in recent years as well. Like, they are very much the exception, and they've worked very, very hard to get there. But just being able to like turn on the TV and go, "Oh yeah, I coached him," is awesome. Very cool. Yeah. But it's about, as I said, it's about all the different levels that these guys are going to go at. It's not just about those guys, but that's obviously nice to see as well.
And what's your goals going into next season? Is it to repeat, to be back-to-back champs, or is it just again to just grow the players that you came through?
I'll give you 2. One obviously is we'll have a new crop of players. We're quite lucky that we're taking quite a lot of senior players in from last year. You know, we're losing Corey, which, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say isn't a big loss. So we're going to have a big gap to fill at QB. So that'll be my job to support the coaching on that side. For me, it's incrementally getting better each year. So this is my 3rd year as OC. So going into my fourth year as OC is to score more points than the year before, because at the end of the day, that's the barometer of my success. So we've left a pretty high benchmark. But no, I always go into the season pretty confident. You know, again, it all comes down to the coach and staff. I'm incredibly lucky. So early into my coaching career to have the kind of mentors I have around me, you know, like people like Coach Simon, Coach Adrian, and Coach Henry and Coach Aaron Sanders and people like that, you know, that have played the game for a very long time. And you know, I'm not sitting here saying I know everything. You know, every session is a learning session for me as a coach. So, just get a bit better than last year.
I think it comes back to the why bit. And as to why, because it's the why, the what, the why, the how, and the what we're doing is the last bit. So it's focusing on that why, and it is that. For me, my why is always around giving people the opportunity to kind of grow themselves through sport, whether that's to make them a better player or to help them grow as a person. So yeah, it's another group to come in and do that with, or continue on the journey with some of the players that will come back from last season. Like we did have, although as you said, we're losing Corey, we're losing Owain, we're losing Davide, but actually in other positions we had a lot of 16-year-old guys come up and start playing. So there's people who are going to be hopefully around the program for a few years. So it's now up to us to help develop them as people, as players, as leaders as well. So that's the goal, I guess. And if it ends in the way it ended this year, then great. But if not, we've still got other goals to try and hit.
Unreal, isn't it? It's certainly one of the benchmarks for most programs to look at, isn't it? And it's certainly in my mind, you know, you've obviously got big competition down there in the south in the Rushmore Knights as well, and it's just great to see so many different programs down there now, and you know, iron sharps iron, all that. You know, I'm sure you'll be butting heads with the Rushmore Knights for years to come, and it's your year this year, isn't it? And it's a massive congratulations to you guys, and it's continuing that success that you've had for many years, and to get bounced back this year is unbelievable. But all we can say is thank you for sharing it with us, taking us through the year, and taking the story along. Anything you want to get to before we get out of here? Because I've certainly asked everything that I want to ask you guys. No, not at all. No. Brilliant. No, well, Coach Firoz, Coach Simon, thank you very much for joining us on Inside Bripple. Isaac, thank you as always. And this has been our Champion Series with the London Blitz under 19s, national champions once again. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you to our listeners and viewers for joining us as well. And we'll catch you again very, very soon. Thank you.